Just a couple of things before we start. We'll start with an acknowledgement of land and also a prayer. So, just like to acknowledge the Durrumbal people, who are the traditional custodians of the land that we are meeting on. We pay our respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. They hold the hopes, dreams, and the knowledge of Aboriginal Australia. We're going to move into our prayer in just a moment. I'll just get Mr. Reddy just to pop the prayer up on the board or the screen. Mr. Reddy's walked out the door, so that makes it a little bit tricky. See if we can pop it up there. There it is. So this is our college prayer. And as a Catholic school, we always start with the prayer as a way of inviting our understanding of God to be present with us. So we start in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Loving God, grant me the courage of St. Brendan to journey beyond the familiar and into the unknown. The conviction of Blessed Edmund to liberate the marginalised. The compassion of Christ to go forth with love. And the faith not to doubt that it will be given. Amen. In the name of the Father, Son, the Holy Spirit. Amen. So the Year 10s have been on a journey over the last couple of days. They've heard a fair amount of information around senior schooling. We have worked through looking at the different pathways, and Peter's going to talk to you a little bit about that this evening. Overall, I think the boys have done really well. There's been a lot of information, but they have really listened, taken it on board, and I've found with this particular group a great willingness to ask questions. And that's really, really important, because the more questions that they ask, the things that are in their mind, they're able to get it. They get the answers, and it helps them with the direction that they want to go. And as I say to the boys, if you've got a question, there's probably 5 boys around you who are looking to say the same question, but haven't been able to put up their hand to do it. So it has really been a good couple of days. We've still got another day together tomorrow. And so we look forward to some information from the various different departments around the school. And it'll be a great opportunity for the boys to hear some more about the pathways that they're going to go. Now, I don't think I introduced myself at the start. No, so my name's Blair McWhinney, and I'm the head of Year 10. So I may have spoken to a few of you on the phone, and you may have received an email from me. But here's a face to the name. So it's great to see you all here tonight, and I really hope you have a great evening, and really take this opportunity to learn and support your son as he moves into the next part of his schooling. I'm going to hand over to Peter Reddy.
Thanks, Blair.
And he'll take it from here.
Okay. Look, first of all, welcome everybody, and thanks very much for joining us, and also extend that welcome to those people who might be joining us on the live stream now or watching the video later on. Look, I think I'd just like to start by reiterating what Blair said. It's been a really solid 24 hours for the boys. They've done a lot of listening, a lot of sitting, but they've really, I think, done a great job in the way they've gone about it. We've had probably more questions in the first 24 hours of this program than we had in the previous 2 whole programs. Okay, so big kudos to the boys for the way you've engaged, and you're back for more punishment tonight, I see. There's a few here, so well done. Look, I think if I was to try and think about the whole educational journey, it's really an exciting time for the boys. You know, if you're thinking about your schooling, okay, there's big milestones along the road, and I see the Year 10 subject selection process for seniors as one of those key junctures because of the capacity for choice and the capacity to follow the passion. So I hope that the boys are excited by this opportunity. I know it's a time of uncertainty as well, but that's what we're here for, is to provide that support. And if I was thinking about, well, what's the ideal, beginning with the end in mind, what would we really like to see from, this senior schooling phase and the outcomes of tonight and this whole process? I'd say what it is when the boys finish Year 12, that they've enjoyed their Years 11 and 12. Okay? We want the boys to enjoy what they're doing. We want them to develop the skills and some understanding that it's going to help them as they transition out of school. And obviously we want them to hope that they get the accreditations that they need to go wherever they want to go. And that sort of, I guess, starts here. And, I suppose the ideal situation is that we select subjects that are going to carry the boys through, and they're going to pick that up. And I guess, I see that as my role in this is sharing the information with you and trying to help you to understand the whole process, showing you what we have to offer here from a curriculum point of view for St Brennan's, and then supporting the process from there. So tonight, first of all, it's an opportunity to also connect with key staff. So there are some other staff around, and I'll try and spot everybody. First of all, Jonathan Gill here, Deputy Principal. I'm going to shame them all and tell them to turn around and give a wave. Mrs. Monique Jorgensen, Director of Academic Performance, who works extensively with the boys in the senior phase of learning. Mr. Jack Ingram, Head of Music. To the back, Mr. Michael Jensen, Head of Department for Information Technologies. To his left, Ms. Danielle Emery, Head of Science. Mrs. Rebecca Lang is there, Director of Pathways. Mr. Luke Thomas is a Senior English Teacher. Questions around essential English aimed at Mr. Thomas. Mrs. Kay Morley beside Mr. Thomas there, Head of Humanities. Miss Olivia Campbell, Director of Religion, Senior. Miss Ainsley Ballinger-Bryce, and she's here in an English capacity for general English. Where's the rest of the teachers? That might be it. Did I miss anyone? Mr. Corey Owens at the back in our tech and sound. And I think that's everyone. All right. What else tonight? Now, the teachers have told me we've got to keep this to under an hour. Okay, so I'll show you what we've got to get through and we'll see how we go. We're trying to condense 5 hours worth of this program so far into an hour. So senior schooling terminology, we're going to look at the different pathways, okay? We're going to look at the Queensland Certificate of Education. We are going to look at the different types of subjects that boys can select from. We're going to look at the ATAR, or the Australian Tertiary Admission Rank. We are going to listen to that fantastic group of young men up the back there. They came in today and spoke to the boys, and it's going to be an opportunity for them to sort of share their story and for you guys to also ask questions of them because, they're living the journey now. We'll have a quick look at what are some alternative options that, boys can still access, but not necessarily directly through us. Opportunity for questions at the end, but in saying that, please feel free if you've got a question that you want answered straight away, please feel free to ask it. And then refreshments at the end. Staff will be here if you wanted to ask questions, and the boys have generously said that we're happy to hang around as well. So that's our hour. Here we go. What have we been doing? I guess it all started yesterday in period 5, boys, that was correct. We were in here for an hour and we went through a whole lot of, all of that. And then we sort of had to carry it over this morning because we didn't get through all of it. But then we went into period 2 today, where I sort of finished off what I didn't get done in period 5. And the boys looked at this, which is on the careers website, and it's called subject targets. And I guess we sort of framed it in the idea of, well, boys, what subject do you love? What do you enjoy? Well, go and click on the target for that subject. That one there is for, you can't probably read that, but that's geography. And then what it basically does is it provides a series of jobs associated with the subject area of geography. And when I think about, my own decisions when looking at pathways, when I had to think about what I wanted to do, I love PE at school, and actually that took me into PE teaching. So the pathways could be related to, and likely related to, subjects that the boys are passionate about. And that's on the careers website. In period 3, we attempted to do an industry investigation. We found this fantastic new platform that we wanted to use. We thought this is great. It's interactive. There's videos. There's lots of stuff that will engage the boys. Now, it was so innovative that our Wi-Fi couldn't really handle the amount of download that was required for 180 boys to watch videos and click through things. So it was actually a debacle and didn't work very well. There was lots of spinning and not much observing going on. But what I would say is this website, all the boys have a login to it, and it really is a great option for exploring careers, jobs, pathways. There's videos of people at work and interviews with them. There's virtual work experience that the boys can do. It's a great platform. And, should you want to go and look at it, please do. In period 4 today, probably always my favourite part of this is the adult panel. And, we're fortunate enough to have, people externally, Mayor Adam Bello, Rory Wex, Matt Way, who's here, and then 3 teachers, Angus Ryan, Brian Barry, and Bill Oram, share their stories about their careers. And they had a lot to offer. If I was to try and pull a thread through what was common to all of them, it was lifelong learning. Every single person who spoke talked about how they'd changed direction, gone into something, then went into this, took an opportunity, went and did this course, spoke to a mentor, but it was this continual change to where they are now. The other common thread was about their passion. It was about what is it that is sort of continuing to be central to whatever they're doing. Matt Way spoke about underground mining and the fact that he's always sort of come back to that and still does it today. Mr. Bill Oram talked about agriculture being something that, despite all his different careers that he's had, it's always been associated with agriculture. He also shared the story, it was a pretty good one, in the fact that he got a dare from a friend to write a letter to the Queen to see if he could be employed to look after the Queen's horses. And believe it or not, Prince Philip apparently wrote Bill a letter back a few months later, and Bill had an interview, and that resulted in him actually working for the Queen in England, looking after her horses. Believe it or not, it's true. So, I guess, a lot of the boys at this point in time think, I need to know exactly what I'm going to do. What am I going to do first? What will I do after that? What's my plan? Okay? And think that that's what's needed, a perfect map of the future. And I think what I'd say is, realistically, what we really need is a general direction. Okay? And it's about, I think, trying to think about the things that the boys like, the things that they really are passionate about and interest them, and taking themselves on a journey in that way. I really believe in the idea of boys enjoying what they do. Okay? The next 2 years would not be very fun if they're stuck in subjects that they don't like. And if they don't like those subjects in school, it's likely that they're not going to like them in university, and so on. So, have a general direction about which way they want to go and trying to pick subjects that suit that. All right. So I'm going to start by looking at the 3, what we sort of think are our 3 key senior pathways. The first one, the ATAR pathway. So obviously for students seeking entrance to university. And there are boys in the Year 10 group who know now straight away they want to go to university. Okay, 30 to 45% of boys on average are on that pathway at St Brennan's. Skills and training. Okay, so the pre-apprenticeship pathway, normally focused on vet, and in between, a blended approach. So typically what we see is, boys, there will be some students who know they want to go to uni. There are some students who know they want to be practical. They know they want to pick up an apprenticeship, okay? And then in between, there's those boys who are looking for combining elements of both. And, we'll hear from some of those guys later on. But the idea of picking up some ATAR subjects because they're capable of doing them, especially in English and mathematics, but then at the same time, picking up some vet subjects to get some accreditations into courses that they might like, and developing skills that are going to be beneficial. Every single student in Year 11 in 2026 will pick up 6 subjects. And so despite the pathways being different, every student does 6 subjects. Each one of those subjects gets 4 one-hour lessons per week. In addition to that, another commonality of all students on that pathway is that they must pick one subject from each of those 3 learning areas. So mathematics, Every single student in year 11 must pick one of those three: essential maths, general maths, or math methods. You do one of those subjects. There is one other mathematics, specialist mathematics, that students can pick if they do mathematical methods. They might want to pick an additional mathematics there. Okay, so every boy picks one maths. Already the boys have been presented on the different levels of mathematics, and the boys are in those pathways at the moment. And typically what we see is that boys either stay in the maths that they're in or potentially drop down one. Hopefully the boys right now have a pretty good idea about which maths they're going to do. The other sub-learning area is English. So general English or essential English. Again, boys are in those classes at the moment. Typically, it's about following that class through. And then there's religious education. Obviously, as a Catholic school, every student at St. Brennan's must pick either study of religion and religion ethics. Okay? So, pick one from each of those, which effectively, if you think we started with 6, you've got to pick 6, okay? Well, we're back to 3, okay? Because we're obviously picking up one of each of those. So the selections, hopefully boys are looking at that going, yeah, I've got a pretty good idea right now as to which one of those they want to do. Another commonality of each of the pathways is that every single student is working towards the Queensland Certificate of Education. And I guess you could think about this as what, I guess from my era, we call the senior certificate. It's a credit-based certificate, and it's about there's a level that students need to meet to get it. Doesn't matter if they do better than that, but it's about trying to meet that level to attain the certificate. About 95%, or last year, 95% of students leaving year 12 attained a QCE, or the Queensland Certificate of Education. Okay, so it's obviously something that is used as part of application processes, potentially recruitment. You know, if you're a student that doesn't have it, then that would not, I guess, essentially help in that process. So we're looking for every single student at St. Brennan's to graduate at the end of year 12 and attain the QCE. Okay, requirements. How do you actually attain the QCE? First of all, it is a accumulation of what we call QCE points, and 1 point per subject per unit or semester if it is passed. Okay, so if you think about, typically with our subjects we'll look at shortly, is that they all have 4 units, okay? And if a student works through all of those units and passes each of those units, they get 4 QCE points for every subject. So if they start with 6 subjects and they attain 4 from each of those, 6 4s are 24, most students are on a trajectory from the very outset to get at least 24 QCE points. Now there are some certificates that give more, and we'll look at those later on. The other requirement is a pass in a unit of English in year 11. So unit 1 of year 11, semester 1, pass that first semester, you meet the literacy requirement, tick, play on. If a student was to not be successful in unit 1 or unit 2, they would then be looking at senior, and that's the idea of having to pass units 3 and 4 at the end of the year as a pair. Okay, so it's obviously ideal, get in, make sure the literacy requirement is met in year 11 to not put that pressure on. The other requirement is numeracy. Exactly like literacy, it works the same way. The boys can pick up the numeracy requirement in year 11 with 1 unit, or they, same thing, have to pass both in year 12. Okay, so that's 3 key requirements so far. And the last one is what we call the Common Core. And that is effectively about accumulating 12 QCE points from subjects that the boys start in. So basically, if whatever they start in year 11, whatever those subjects are, they need to attain 12 from them. So if they start in those maths, English and religion classes and finish them, done, they meet that requirement. Typically, that's not a problem, And as a school, Mrs. Jorgensen certainly monitors that. If boys are looking to change subjects, that's something that she will always check in on and go, well, hang on, that's going to be a concern for your Common Core. And we've had issues around that, but it's something that we can control. If you're to look at why don't some students get there, well, it's often the 20 points, okay? Sometimes it's the literacy and numeracy requirements. If we see that there's a concern with literacy or numeracy, there are some short courses that we can look to do. But if we look at our past, it's been the 20 points most of the time. All right, boys, you've got to talk to your parents here, okay, about these 3 questions. Go. And now, if your son's not here, parents, you've got to talk to each other about those 3. You got 1 minute. Go for it. Now, don't let us down here, boys. Show us that you've learnt something. Ten seconds. All right, 3, 2, 1, here we go. So I won't put anyone on the spot, but I'm hoping that this is what you were talking about. First of all, there's our 3 learning areas. Everyone got that one? Yep. Next one, the Queensland Certificate of Education. Yep, everyone's nodding. Yep, good. And there's our requirements, okay? So QCE, boys are going to hear a lot about it, all right? Along the way, it's a key certificate that all students are trying to attain. All right, we'll keep moving. The next, we're going to look at, the first pathway we'll look at is the ATAR pathway, not because it's more important, but because it's more intricate, and there's a little bit to explain with this pathway. First of all, most complicated. The ATAR stands for the Australian Tertiary Admission Rank. It's effectively a number. That's all it is. 99.95 being the highest, down to 30. It's not worked out by us as a school. It's not worked out by Queensland Curriculum Assessment Authority. It's worked out by an organisation called QTAC, and that is purely for university entrance. That's all the ATAR is for. And if you're thinking about, well, what's that about? I guess if you look at a university in Brisbane where we've got a huge population of students exiting, and we look at a popular course such as potentially physiotherapy, UQ might have 300 spots. There might be 1,000 students want to go into those 300 spots, which doesn't work. So QTAC basically ranks the students so that the universities can then make a decision about who should get that option. That is all it is for. Obviously, depending on the university, depending on the location and the demand, that changes the ATAR requirement. So typically what we see, if you could compare universities in Brisbane to universities in regional areas, CQU, JCU, the ATAR requirement to go into the same course is less. All right, how do you actually attain an ATAR? What's required? First of all, there's 5 general subjects. Okay, now boys might want to pick 6 general subjects. They might want to pick 5 general and applied subject, or 5 general and a vet subject. We'll talk about those. 4 general subjects and 1 applied is another way it can happen. Or a student could do 4 general subjects and 1 vet subject to a Cert 3 level. Okay, now we offer 2 Certificate 3s. The rest of our certificate courses are at Certificate 2 level. The other requirement is that the student must pass English. So General English or Essential English is the requirement. If you look at how students got their ATAR, that's the data from last year, what you can see there is 70% of students used 5 general subjects to attain their ATAR. 4 general and applied, okay, 17%, and we certainly have boys that use this option and that option. Okay, we have boys that will do 4 general and an applied, often religion and ethics, okay, as an applied subject. Yeah, there's some scaling around its results that are quite positive should a student want to go that way. And then looking at the vet, all right, sometimes boys will use a certificate 3 in fitness. So they are the ATAR subjects that will be on the subject selections for the boys that we are offering for next year. Okay, and I think there's 20 of them there. They won't all run. Effectively, what will happen is next week when the boys do their selections, subjects that there are low numbers in, okay, won't be viable for the school to run. Okay, so basically the subjects that we offer will be determined by the student preferences. And the idea of that is trying to give as many students as possible as many of their ideal preferences. Things to realise about ATAR subjects, units 1 and 2 occur in year 11, and then units 3 and 4 sometimes begin in term 4 of year 11. So the boys will be going into that, the year 11 boys currently, and then the rest of unit 4 happens in year 12. Each of the general subjects gives 4 QCE points. Okay, units 1, 2, 3, and 4. Each unit of work attains 1 QCE point. The other thing to note about those general subjects is that for every general subject, a student gets a score out of 100. Regardless of the subject, all right, they're working towards, hopefully, well, as close to as possible, a maximum mark of 100. Other things about general subjects is that they all have 3 internal assessments, 1 external assessment. If we look at biology, that's the breakdown of how biology works, okay? So IA1 worth 10%, IA2 20%, IA3 is worth 20%, and then there's external assessment worth 50, totaling to 100. If we look at mathematics, okay, different distribution of the results across the different tasks, but again, working towards 100. All science and mathematics external assessment are worth 50%. Okay? Subject such as geography, the 3 internal assessments, note they are going to work towards 75, and then the final exam is only worth 25%. Okay? So mathematics and science, 50% external exams. Everything else is a 25% external exam. And sometimes that weighs into boys' consideration of things, like what's that exam load going to be like at the end potentially. The best 5 subjects, so based on the boys' results, out of 100 for each of those subjects, those results are scaled, and then the best 5 scaling results add together to give a final aggregate, which then becomes an ATAR. External exams, this is where our Year 12s are up to now. We had our final IA3 today with general maths and specialist maths, and now the boys are in a phase of between now and week 4 of term 4, when the external exams begin, preparing for these assessments. So when we look at St Brennan's, that's our first exam, design. Every student who does design in Queensland sits that exam in the AM period for that duration. So it's basically an assessment that is written by the QCAA. We don't see it. We obviously have a syllabus that we teach to. We have 4 years of previous exams that we are guided by, and loads of revision tools as well. But it is an external assessment for general subjects. Every general subject will have an external exam. Subject scaling. And I guess, it's about adjusting up or down the value of a subject result so that we can compare them fairly. And my explanation to the boys was, well, if we look at this subject, we call this subject 1. Here's a result from 0 to 100 scaled. That there, let's call this orange line here PE. And that there would come across, if we say that orange is PE, the blue is physics. If I said to the boys, all right, fellas, you've got 90 for PE or 90 for physics, which result is harder to get? And of course, they all said, well, physics, sir. So if you think about that, what happens, that 90 in physics scales upwards, the 90 in PE scales downwards. All right? So basically, it's about looking at the subject, how difficult it is, looking at the students who do those subjects and how they perform in the other subjects, and then QTAC applies a scaling process to it. This here shows, first of all, let's look at this, mathematical methods, a raw score of 70, which means the student scored 70 out of 100. Last year, that 70 scaled to 83.1. The year before, you can see what it scaled to. Okay? Looking at geography, raw score of 70 scaled to 72.5. So what we can actually see, if you compare methods with a score of a scale to 83.1 versus PE, a score of 70, it is scaled to less than 58.9 because there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those scaled results there are what add up to be a final number, which QTAC then turn into an ATAR. Okay, so scaling is for some of the students who are looking at requirements and looking at universities, particularly in Brisbane and courses, all right, it is something that needs to be considered. You know, would I say it should be everything? Definitely not, all right, because if we look at this, all right, physical education, 70, all right, yeah, okay, it's not scaling well at 70, but if boys are in PE and they love PE and they're working really hard at it and doing really well, well, PE might still end up being, even after scaling, their top subject. Okay, so scaling's part of consideration, but I would certainly be looking at, all right, well, what subject is the student going to go into and enjoy and want to do and do their very best in? What do you think could be a possible raw score for them out of 100, and how might that scale? Okay, but you know, myself and Mrs. Jorgensen and Mrs. Lang are certainly available to students and yourselves should you want to look at that and explore that. Okay, so if I add all those up, they add to 354.1. That's the ATAR that student would have got last year. Okay, so you can see what's happened to scaling over the last few years in that regard. Okay, so it's a fairly complex process. All right. Any questions about general? There's a fair bit there. Total score out of 100. Okay, it gets scaled. To get the ATAR, you've got to do five general, or 4 general and applied, or 4 general and a certificate 3 at vet level. All right, applied subjects. Here's the subjects that we are offering for next year. Okay, if you're to look at the applied subjects in comparison to the general subjects, they're going to be easier as a rule. However, there's still commonalities. There's still 4 units of work. Units 1, 2, 3, 4. The boys attain 1 QCE point for each unit of work. Year 11 is formative, so units 1 and 2 can't be used to go towards an ATAR, but units 3 and 4 do. Okay, and obviously with 4 units of work, an applied subject gives 4 QCE points, just like the general subject. Okay, so both of those subjects types will give 4 QCE points. Definitely a larger focus on life skills, and there's an increased practical focus when you look at the applied subjects. Applied subjects assessment, 4 by internal assessments. There's no external exams for applied subjects. It's on an A to E scale. It's not out of 100. The A to E result is what gets used in scaling. So I talked about religion and ethics before. So an A in religion and ethics last year scaled to 78. So if you're looking at that from back where we were, that's how it would have performed. There's definitely a practical component, which is often enjoyed. Thing to note with essential mathematics and essential English is there is a common internal assessment, or called the CIA. It's written by the QCAA. The schools get a window to do it in, typically about 3 weeks, and the school receives that, and part of the preparation is making sure students are ready for that. Okay, that's applied. Moving on to the vet subjects on offer. And there's a lot of information there. And I can tell you that Mr. Lawrence said today that I think 75% of boys at St. Brennan's do one or more vet subject. Okay. Basically, working your way down, I've just put a few little dot points beside each of them that are worth noting. The Certificate 2 in active volunteering. Okay, boys with that course do 20 hours of volunteering. They do first aid, they do some file management, some work placement sort of skills that they develop there. It can be done in 12 months. We had that course run last year. The boys finished it in year 11, picked up a study line, or went into another applied subject for units 3 and 4 in year 12. The next one, Certificate 2 in Autonomous Technologies, which is a dual certificate. So where I've got this indented, that means this and this go together. Okay, Autonomous Technologies then goes into the Certificate 3 in Aviation, remote pilot. So it's effectively drones. Note there that I've got beside it VETIS. VETIS stands for Vocational Education Training in Schools, and that means it is funded. If you wanted to do that course there, it costs you about $4,500. Certificate 2 in Electrotechnology is the same, but there's VETIS funding for those courses because there's a demand in those spaces. We need people who know how to use autonomous technologies. We need electricians, so the government is funding people to go into it. I guess the consideration there is if a student wanted to do both, you can only use VETIS funding once. Okay? So unless you're feeling very generous, I would be steering your son in the direction of one. Everything else there, you know, what I would say is walking around the school and getting to walk in and see the boys in action in their lessons, it's amazing to see the work that they do. You know, if you go down to the industrial technology space and look at the boys doing construction, it's like going onto a job site. You know, they'll be framing walls, plastering walls, putting, you know, PowerPoints in without the electricity, obviously. But it's what they get through and get done is really amazing. Popular, you know, the Certificate 3 in Fitness, it's worth 8 QCE points. Okay, so if a student had any 5 other subjects plus the Certificate 3 in Fitness, well, they're on a trajectory to 28 QCE points. So yeah, that's what's on offer. And, you know, I guess the good thing about the certificate courses is that they are nationally recognised accreditation. A student attains a Certificate 3 in Fitness at St. Brennan's College. If they move to Tasmania, that Certificate 3 in Fitness means the same thing. Any questions on vet subjects? Okay. Yes. Yeah, good question. Okay, so how it works, this one, Cert 2 in Sport Coaching, and this are a dual combination. So the Certificate 2 is Year 11, the Certificate 3 is where it goes in Year 12. And I think this year the boys are pretty much finished the Certificate 2 in Sports Coaching. They are working towards that by the end of Term 3, so they will then look to make a start on the Cert 3 in Fitness in Term 4 of Year 11. Any other questions? Okay. The assessment with vet, yes.
Sorry, that means they get a dual certificate when they exit?
Yep. No, they'd have both. So they would actually have the certificate 2 in sport coaching plus the certificate 3 in fitness. Now, yeah, that's right. So they'd actually come out with both of those two and both of those two. All right. Interestingly, the boys could do the certificate 2 in sport coaching and stop there with 4 QCE points. And for certain students, that's an option. For certain students, we all start in year 11. We all start doing 6. Okay, but if there are certain things along the way that it might be beneficial for, then there's options for that into year 12 potentially. But students who pick up study lines need to be very much self-regulated and disciplined in that space. Okay. Yes.
So all of those certificates,
Yep.
are they extra on top of school fees? Or are they part?
Good question. Are all of these certificates extra on top of school fees? Yes, they are. There are levies associated with the certificate courses. Typically, the automotive, construction, engineering pathways, rural operations and tourism, they're on our scope as an RTO. So, about $350, I think, is the levy on those. I think the Cert 2 sport coaching and fitness is at $500. And then there's the VETIS for the other two. The active volunteering is $300. I'm not off the top of my head. I don't know what tourism is, but yes, there's a levy associated with the certificate courses, and obviously, with engineering pathways, there's a lot of material use, projects that the boys work on, that sort of thing. Any other? Yes. 100%. You can do 3 of these subjects. So if there's a student who wants to go down that skills and training pathway, they might do their 3 key learning areas plus 3 of those. And we have lots of boys that do that. Okay? If you're looking at what's really popular, well, a lot of the boys like the electro-technology, obviously going into pre-electrical apprenticeship stuff. Construction's really popular. Engineering, welding and metal fabrication. There will be boys doing 3 certificate courses plus maths, English and religion subjects. Yeah. A lot of boys, there'll be boys who will just pick one of these to complement. They might do 5 general and then pick up a vet course because, they might want to develop some skills. It's a bit of an outlet. It decreases, if you're looking at a vet subject, if the boys work hard in class, you're finishing it in class. There's not a lot to do outside it. So it's not a bad option in that regard. If there's someone wanting to develop some skills, all right, or just do it as a subject where it's a bit of a release for them. The certificate 3 in fitness is very popular in that regard. Boys will do that because it's just a break from being in the theory lessons the whole time. Yep. Yep. How does? Yep. Yep. Okay. Yeah. So these certificate 2s run for year 11 and 12. Yeah. So it takes the boys 2 years to complete all the competencies. So all of those courses that are there run for year 11 and 12. The only one, I said the active volunteering it's a 12-month certificate. Sometimes the boys will push through the certificate 3 in fitness and get that knocked off earlier as well. We have had students actually want to start a certificate 4 in fitness and then want to go on to do personal training. Okay, over the years there has been students want to do that. But they are, if you look at that, aside from the top, all of those courses there are going to be a 2-year course. Any other vet-related questions? All right. Assessment-wise, it's competency-based. So competent or not yet competent, it's not like an A to E or a score out of 100. Okay, I was talking to the boys about this and the idea that whatever they start in Unit 1 or they start in Term 1 with Year 11, those competencies, they need to try and get those finished in Term 1, because if there's competencies they don't get finished in Term 1 and then they go into Term 2 and maybe there's a couple of competencies they don't get done, Term 3, maybe there's a few, Term 4, looking back across the year, there's a whole lot of work to do. So despite it being manageable if they work really hard, if they don't work really hard, what happens is they get to the end and there's a whole lot of work to do. So just being disciplined in class and making sure that they're getting it done along the way is important, because the competencies not finished accumulate and the student may not necessarily get full completion, full accreditation. There is partial completion, so if they completed half the competencies, they'd get 2 QCE points. Any other questions around any of that? Assessment-wise, observation, questioning and discussion. So for example, rural operations, Mr. Oram might watch the boys get livestock on and off a truck, or mix petrol for a chainsaw. All right, so it's actually watching it happen, questioning, can be purely practical and observation and questioning at times. All right, so here's some education profiles of students who have exited in the past, and you can see that student there has completed 6 general subjects, units 1, 2, 3 and 4. You can see they've got a final result over here, okay? 6 general subjects, 6 4s, will get 24 QCE points, and that student is obviously also ATAR eligible with those 6 general subjects. Here's another student also doing 6 general subjects. You can see the difference here is that they are missing units 3 and 4. So if you look at Year 11, units 1 and 2, they've studied music in Year 11, dropped music in Year 12, picked up a study line and focused on those other subjects. 22 QCE points for that. Here's 5 general and a vet. So the 5 general would be used for an ATAR. The certificate 2, it used to be sport and rec, it's now sport coaching, and the certificate 3 in fitness, okay? That's an example of that student there. They did the certificate 3 in fitness because it was their outlet. It was a thing that just helped them break up the week. And 28 QCE points. Next one, 4 general, 1 applied plus 1 vet. Okay, still ATAR eligible because they've done four general subjects. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's the religion ethics. Got an A for it. Okay, so that A would have scaled to, at that point in time, in 22, that would have scaled to just over 80. So you can see based on their results, it would have worked well for them. Plus they've done the certificate 3 in fitness. Okay, so that's a different mix. Again, all of those combinations, ATAR eligibility, but you can see how it's sort of tapered back in the, I guess, the demand from general subjects. And there's a combination of all 3 types of subjects, general, applied, vet. Again, that student with 2 general subjects would not be ATAR eligible, all right? But they've done the 3, certificate courses, rural ops, automotive, engineering. They've done religion and ethics, and they've challenged themselves and pushed with the English and general mathematics. That student could have done essential English, essential mathematics, but they've taken on and done the level that's challenged them, and obviously very reasonable. Looking at those results, really very strong, very strong. So I would encourage the boys, if they are capable of doing general mathematics and general English, to do it. I think they should, try to do the highest level that is suitable for them. All right. Any questions about any of that so far? Righto. Panel of experts, boys. We might give them a clap. Down you come, boys. Come on down. Normally I have to bribe the boys with offers of buckets of KFC and stuff, but these guys have been very generous to us today, and they did a really great job this afternoon sharing their story with the Year 10 boys. You're not getting... No. Sorry, Paddy. We'll see what we can do, eh? You definitely need some, do you? Okay. All right. So effectively, the idea here is, these guys will, I guess, share the subjects that they've picked up in senior. I guess share their story, but it's the opportunity to ask them questions as well. So, feel free throughout to raise your hand if you want to ask a specific student a question, or we can take additional questions at the end, whatever suits you. But these guys, I guess, we've just looked at the different pathways. These students, they're all doing subjects which are putting them on different pathways. Typically, we've got Year 12 students here, but Caden Hoare here as well as a Year 11 student. And I'm basically just going to pass the microphone along. The boys will be I'll introduce Matt Besidenhout first up. But the idea is they'll share their subjects, why they chose them and that sort of thing. And then please feel free to ask questions if you've got them. Thanks, Matty. Tell us about your subjects.
Yeah, so I'm doing ATAR. I'm doing General English, Math Methods, Study of Religion, Business, Geography, and then a study line. And I chose those subjects because they didn't run legal studies, so I had to settle for business. And I'm hoping to study law next year at QUT in Brisbane. So I think the subjects just really helped me out, gave me all the prerequisites in the ATAR that I need to do that.
Yep.
Yeah, and then I'd say, so I wanted me to talk about the biggest struggles that we've had. I'd say it was the step up from year 10 to 11, specifically methods maths. But then even more for me was the step up from year 11 to 12. Like we had the academic mentoring interviews at the end of year 11, and I was going in to year 12 with like an estimated 68 ATAR. And I knew that I wasn't going to get into any courses with that, so I kind of had to rethink all the study I was doing and everything, and I've managed to get the ATAR up by like 25 points since then. So I think, just definitely changing up the study habits, getting them set early would be my biggest tip for you guys, because I didn't really do that. I had to kind of learn them all as I went through year 12. So yeah, the biggest tip I'd say was just getting the study habits done early and getting used to them.
So you said you've got a study line?
Yeah, I've got a study line.
Tell us about that.
So just 4 times a week, instead of a class, I just get an hour in the library. And so, sometimes it's pretty easy to just get off track in that period, but I think it comes in clutch when I need it, so I can get that extra hour a day in. We had the methods math exam on Tuesday. So leading up to that, I was spending that hour doing math study, getting an extra hour in for the day, which definitely helped me out a lot. But then, you can just catch up on all your homework, all your assignments. It's real good.
That's good. Isaac Dern, do you want me to come down to you? We'll swap it up. We'll go the other end. All right.
Because I got a school-based apprenticeship with Fleet Industries just outside of town there. So, yeah. And so I dropped automotive for that because I didn't really want anything to do with automotive. I didn't really think that was going to help me with my pathway.
Yep.
So, yeah. So now I've got a study line instead, like Maddie still, 4 times a week, an hour each day.
And what day do you have off, and how are you sort of finding having one day? Is you just doing one day off a week at the moment?
Yeah. So every Wednesday I got off.
Yep.
Which actually works out awesome. But at the start it's a bit tricky, and they give you all the TAFE stuff as well for after school. So all the TAFE work that you have to fill out in your spare time as well on top of schoolwork that you're doing. It gets a bit tricky and whatever. But, yeah.
Yep.
I'm coming around to it now. So.
Yeah, good on you. All right. You want to pass it over to Pat? So Pat Waller, tell us about your subjects, what you're doing.
Yeah, so I'm doing a bit of a blended sort of pathway. So I've got a few general subjects, a few applied, and then certificates as well. So I do general English, I do essential mathematics, religion ethics, certificate 3 in fitness, and HPE. And I also, for the last 18 months, did a certificate 2 in aviation inline maintenance up at the Alliance hangar in Rockhampton. That course is a really great opportunity to get involved in a workplace and sort of learn those habits around like procedures, safety, and rocking up to work, PPE, that sort of stuff. That course really provided like a great way to get into the aviation industry. So it gives you get to work on like the electronic side of things, the mechanical and the structural, so you learn everything about it. And it's also basically a guaranteed certificate 4 in Brisbane after, which gets you into an apprenticeship. So that was a really good opportunity. And after, going through year 12, you realise that certificates are a really good way to get into that sort of workforce habit, and, you actually have to get stuff done, and it's a really great way to figure out how to actually have a job.
And do you think you will carry it through? Like, do you want to continue on that pathway with the aviation industry?
No, I'm going for auto electrician apprenticeship, so I've applied for a few of those, been really successful using that course, had interviews and stuff. That's their main focus, is asking lots of questions around that certificate too, and they're really interested in it.
Yep. And you're doing PE as well, which is obviously a general subject there. How are you finding day off a week? Does it clash? Do you miss a lesson of PE?
Yeah, I miss every Tuesday because I used to be up in Rocky. I also do have a study line as well.
Okay.
But PE, yeah, really good subject. So just using that study line wisely to manage PE, because there's quite a big workload and big assignments.
Yep. All right. You want to pass it over to Jesse McWhinney? Jesse, you want to go for it? Tell us your story.
Yeah, I'm doing ATAR as well, and I picked general English, math methods, study of religion, biology, geography, and music and practice. And realistically, when I sat down to do my subject selection 2 years ago, I had absolutely no idea what I was going to do.
Yep.
Not a clue in the world. Didn't know where I was going, what was going on. But I picked biology because I knew I might want to do something to do with health science. And since then, I sort of explored my options and found a pathway, hopefully, to go to university at the University of Queensland through doing exercise and sports science down there. But I just want to say one thing is that, you don't have to know what you want to do at all. In year 10, I didn't have a clue. I didn't even know if I wanted to go to uni. But as long as you have a pathway between vet and ATAR, you should be able to find your way from there. So.
Yep. And the step up for you, like 10 to 11 or 11 to 12, Maddie sort of talked about that being a step up each time. What about for yourself? Has that been a challenge? You're working really hard at the moment, we know that, but tell us about that for yourself. How have you managed that?
Yeah, I know it can get sugar-coated a bit, the step up between the grades, but it's hard, and
Yep.
the workload does definitely increase. There's going to be nights where you're just going to have to put your phone away, put the game away, and just do some work.
Does he put his phone away, Dad? Sometimes, apparently. Yeah, okay. No, good.
And if I go to Dad and he says, "How's work going?" I say, "Yeah, it's all right." I'm probably lying.
Yep.
Because there's always work to do, and it's always hard. And if you want to get that good grade or the extra step up, you have to put in the extra work.
Yeah.
You're going to have hard work, especially if you're doing ATAR.
Yeah.
And it'd be the same with vet courses as well. If you want to pass that vet course, you're going to have to do the hard work as well.
For sure. All right. I'm going to pass it over to Killian. Killian, go for it. Tell us your story.
So I'm doing ATAR as well. I'm doing math methods, general English, SOR, physics and chemistry. I initially did psychology as well, but I dropped that at the end of last term 3 for study line. I'm doing a subjects as I help with prerequisites. I'm aiming to do an advanced science degree at UNSW next year, and I'm looking to have that to help me to join the Australian Navy. So I'll be going down to Canberra at UNSW ADFA and helping, try and do a degree down there. I think that one of the biggest challenges for me coming into year 11 and 12 doing ATAR was definitely the workload. As Manny said, going on, you have struggles, you're thinking it's a bit too easy. You have to make sure that when you come into 11, you come into 12, these subjects, you have to know what you're doing, spending your time doing the right using the right resources, making sure you're doing the right work, listening in class, asking for help, going to tutorials, the Wednesday tutorials with Mr. Thomas, the Tuesday ones with Miss Emery at science, making sure you're trying to do your best just to get the most you can at school.
You shared with the boys this afternoon about, you had a prediction at the end of year 11 and you had a meeting with Mrs. Jorgensen and you've gone on and that's
so
been
at the end of
positive.
last year, my predicted ATAR was 71. At the moment, I'm sitting at 93.5. So I've made sure I've realised that at the end, I've put the work in, making sure I know what I want to do when I get out next year, what I want to achieve at school at the moment. Just making sure I understand by putting the hard work in, making sure where possible, if I have nothing in the afternoon, doing, a Tomy stuff, homework, try to just do little stuff as possible just to make the biggest difference.
Yeah.
And I feel like for me, tutorials has been the biggest help. The Tuesday night tutorials for math, the Wednesday ones for English, Tuesday, Thursday for science. Even if I don't know, I don't have anything to do, just going there just to get some help, doing questions as well is the biggest difference.
Cool. All right, Caden Hall, year 11. So you were sitting here last year. How's it been for you?
Yeah, it's pretty good. Grade 11's better than grade 10, but
Why? Why is it better?
just picking your subjects and getting a bit more freedom in that choice.
Yeah.
So you don't want to do science or humanities anymore. You just want to maybe do some auto, do
Yep.
some engineering.
Yep.
that sort of thing.
What subjects are you doing? Auto engineering. What else are you doing?
No, right now I'm doing electro, auto, Cert 3 fitness, general math, general English, and RE.
Okay. So you're doing 3
Blended.
vet plus general math, general English. So it's okay. Why'd you do general maths and general English versus essential maths, essential English?
So, started grade 11, I picked methods maths,
Yep.
and I thought I could just cruise through it like I did in grade 10,
Yep.
and you can't.
Yep.
It's a step up.
Yeah.
And I don't know, after the first term, I was like, I don't want to do this. So
Yeah.
I dropped it. And general English, I just thought, why not give it a go? And Miss Jorgensen's been really good helping me. And yeah, it just makes it a lot easier for me, and it's good.
Good on you. Anyone else? I'll go to Nate. Let's pass to Nate first.
I'm also doing ATAR path. I chose math methods, general English, SOR, PE, construction, and chemistry. I chose those subjects because after school I go hopefully JCU and do physiotherapy. So that PE and chemistry are prerequisites for me to get into that course.
Yep. What's been your biggest challenge, you reckon?
Bloody teachers here, but yeah, chemistry. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, chemistry.
Difficult? Yep.
Chemistry is probably the hardest subject.
Yep.
Like I said before, like I thought it was going to be easy, just like elements on the periodic table. But first,
Yeah, no biggie.
After the first exam, I got like a 13 out of 20. It's like a C or something like that. So yeah, probably the workload for all the subjects and how hard they actually are. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you're doing all right, so good on you.
Yeah.
Subject changes. So, Caden, you talked about subject change. Anyone else have a subject change? Yeah. Tell us about it. Obviously, psychology, wasn't it? Yeah. Tell us about that.
I initially chose psychology because I wanted to do legal studies and history first. Fortunately, I didn't get a subject. So with the job I'm going for in the Navy, I'm doing intelligence. So I thought psychology would be a subject to help me. Just understand how the brain works, or just something I'm interested in. For me, it was the reason I dropped it was just I had a lot of workload doing 3 sciences mixed in with math methods, English, SOR. I feel like to me, it was a bit too much of a workload. It didn't help my ATAR most. So I thought I'd just drop it for a study line so that I can then focus on those harder subjects. And it's been beneficial for me, especially having those 4 full-time study lines a week, being able to get assessment done, homework in, handing in assessment on time, just trying to do stuff as well.
Okay, so hands up if you've got a study line here. 1, yeah, rightio. So a fair few of you guys. All right. Questions? Yes. Question is, how many of you are day students to boarders?
So there is there's three boarders and 4 day students.
I'll just repeat the question just so the people live stream or watching later can listen. The question, boys, is around, as day students leaving school, you got distractions, you got footy training, you got lots going on. What's your way of handling that and overcoming those distractions and staying focused? We might hear from a couple of you guys with your answers to that. I'll go to Maddie and Jess.
I'd say the biggest one is just taking advantage of your weekends. So it's pretty busy most of the time on the weekends, especially being a teenager. Like you want to go out and see your mates. But I think it's just kind of being disciplined and forcing yourself to sit down at the desk and get a bit of work done. Because sometimes it's just, more important to hook in for a few hours and letting it pile up for the end of the term. So yeah, I'd just definitely say the discipline, skipping out on a few hangouts with your mates every now and then to like delegate a bit of time specifically to working. But I'd say Caden would be a better person to talk about that because he's in the first.
Yeah.
So I'll hand it over to him.
All right, yeah, fair call. So Caden's in the first 13 and obviously there's a big, you're talking about managing time really effectively. Caden, you've got a big time commitment with that. How do you plan that out? How do you handle it?
Yes, obviously first is a bit of a commitment. Got to rock up training and go 100% all the time, every day. But yeah, on the days you do get off, I just try and get any homework that I'm given, get it done straight away. Get home, try not to yeah, I don't know, just try not to go to my room or nothing because I'll probably just end up going to sleep. So, yeah, just try and sit down straight away, get it done. So then it's not piling up, and once it snowballs, it's
Stay on top of it.
yeah, it's hard to sort of stop and
Cool.
get back on top of it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Jesse, you shared a couple of ideas today around exactly that, but
Yeah, I think it's not so much calling off hangouts with your mates; it's planning hangouts with your mates. So like on the weekends I play club footy, and then I got work on a Sunday, so I got most of my weekends out anyway. But I don't sacrifice my social life so much when it doesn't need to be sacrificed. Not
Yeah.
unnecessary work. So like if you know you got a big weekend where you got like a big assignment or a big study, plan the hangout with your mates on a Friday afternoon when you know it's the end of the week and you know you won't do any work, rather than a Sunday night when you know you got a big workload. Because then you're still like maintaining your happiness in your social life in a very like rough time. Year 12 is going to be it's intense, rather than just doing nothing, just schoolwork, and you end up becoming a bit unhappy about it. So
Yeah.
it's more planning your social life rather than getting rid of it altogether. That's what worked for me best.
yeah, for sure. So that idea of putting the fun stuff in first and then finding the spots around it, I suppose, that where you are going to chime in.
Just knowing that you're gonna have to do hard work,
Yeah,
and just planning the fun stuff around that, because you know there's going to be blocks where you can just have to put it away and just do the hard work. But if you find the right time to have fun as well, you'll find a good balance, I reckon.
yeah, cool. Other questions? Yep.
Did you have any tips? Like a lot of you talk about how hard one is going for homework from grade 10 to 11. So do you have any tips for someone who might be just doing like the basic homework from grade 10 and having to get into a study pattern from grade 11 where you have to do the extra effort?
Yep.
How did you get yourself there?
So the question is, someone who's, just doing, just enough, I suppose, at that year 10 level to then take the transition into year 11, how do you sort of change your habits? What do you do to go from, working at that sort of level where you're not doing as much as maybe you could to a level that is catering for the demands of year 11 or 12? Killian, do you want, or Jess, whoever wants to talk to
one
us?
thing me, Killian, and Matthew can talk about is going to the tutorial if you know you need to do more work after school, and Nate as well. Sorry, Nate. Doing the tutorials after school and
Yeah.
stuff where you have teachers actually helping you. Because when you go home, you try to do it all by yourself and you're not used to doing it all by yourself, it can be a bit overwhelming. But if you actually communicate with your teachers, go to the tutorials, ask for extra help. I know all the teachers up the back are more than willing to help with anything that you have questions for. So if you really want help from your teachers, I reckon that's one main thing.
Yeah, just like going from year 10 to 11 is a big step. I realised that toward the end of year 11, around term 3, which was not the greatest. But yeah, what Jesse said, going to tutorials is the best thing you can, no matter what it be, with just homework or just learning Macbeth quotes or trying to complete Stoic when it's not the greatest thing in the world. But like little things like that, just emailing teachers, going to tutorials, asking teachers at lunch, or just trying to have a little plan where you can just sit down, do 5-10 minutes of practicing certain questions, certain homework, giving yourself a break, and then try and go and remember that stuff.
Okay, so tutorials are a big part of that.
I reckon come from a boarder's perspective, like
Good on you.
7, 8, 9, 10. I just used to watch YouTube every 1 hour
No,
of
that's
study.
not true.
No, yeah, because you have for a boarder
that's true.
from Sunday to Thursday, we have 1 hour of study every day. So if you're a boarder, you can get a lot done in 1 hour.
Yep.
Like if you got English homework, math homework, chemistry homework, whatever homework, you can get a fair chunk of that done in the hour that you have. So I reckon just utilise that time. Then if you got to do an extra 5-10 minutes, that's not that much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Working with intensity
Yeah,
in that time. And you guys have really tapped into that idea of tutorials. Yeah. And I would really concur with that. The idea of accessing the tutorials and, the work and the learning that can happen in that hour in a tutorial can far exceed, the time by yourself where you might struggle with things versus getting an answer to a problem straight away. So the tutorials are definitely a really good way, and it's a way of locking in a certain number of hours in a week straight up. Yep. Yeah.
If you think that you don't have anything to work on in the tutorials, where can you go and look? 'Cause I know when I've asked in previous times,
Yep.
where can you go for revision if you think you don't need to work on anything so you're prepared
Yep. Really good question. So the question, boys, is if you sort of feel like you're up with your work, where do you go to find out what you need to do when you go to a tutorial? So what are you going to do when you get there if you feel like you're on top of things?
With methods, it's just a textbook, really. Like every chapter of the textbook, every part has like a little review at the end of it. So I feel like there's always a bit of work to do in there, and then just practicing your examples. And just always, if you're lost for what to do, just go ask your teachers. Like they've been through this that many times, they know exactly what to tell you, and they're not afraid to give you a bit of extra work. And then for subjects like business and everything, all the textbooks, it's just pretty much has like assessments just in there, like practice ones and everything. So yeah, just go have a look in them, flick through it, and you'll find heaps of work to do.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Any other questions? Yep.
There's been a lot of talk up there about study lines.
Yep.
But earlier in the night you said all boys have to choose 6 subjects.
Yep. Yeah, good question.
At what point do they transition? Do they drop subjects?
Yep.
Or how does that work?
Yeah, so the question's about study lines, and like I talked at the beginning about every student doing 6. So in year 11, every student starts with 6, and then once they've finished unit 1 and 2, and the boys have experienced their subjects, they know which subject after a year, they've got a very good feel around each of those subjects, and then they can then make a decision around, you know what, that's the one that's going to go. Maybe I'm not enjoying that one as much as I liked. I've done unit 1 and 2, I've got the QCE points, I'm now going to get rid of it and use that as a study line. So end of unit 1 and 2, bank the QCE points, have a good feel for the subjects they're doing, and make an informed decision versus I'm going in with 5 with a study line, and then I'm doing that and I'm like, well, I don't actually like one of these subjects. And I guess it's by having 6, it's making sure you're covering exactly everything you might want to do and working out exactly the best one not to do. Yes?
Some of the boys were talking about like going into doctors or
Yep. Yep.
is that part of certificates or is that a skill-based?
Yep. It's a good question. So, Pat talked about going into Rockhampton to do a certificate in airline maintenance. That's external. Okay, so and I'll actually just quickly go through that in a second. Effectively, that we've got the subjects that I've shown on the screen here tonight. They are on offer for us to deliver here at St Brennan's College, but there are other avenues. Okay, so I'll go into that. Look, I'm conscious of time. The boys are able to hang around tonight, but just with time where we're at. Boys, thanks very much for sharing your story. You did a great job today, and you've done a great job tonight. Can we just give them a round of applause, please? Thanks, boys. Yeah. Paddy's demanding the KFC. All right, I'm going to try and punch through the rest of it. I reckon you might deserve it, Patrick. All right. So, and I guess you segue into what we're about to show very quickly now. There are other options. So there's, that idea of general applied vet where you can do other things as well. There's music theory and practice that students can do. Students, who are, that's their passion, that's what they're working on. They can pick up that here at school. There's the School of Distance Education. If we're not offering a subject that a student wants to do, then there's scope to actually do that through the School of Distance Education. You can do it here on a study line. Typically not many boys take that up, but it's there as an option. There's tertiary study, Central Queensland University. There's a range of options there for certificate courses, but there's also the Start University Now program or the SUN program. I think there's, there is a cost with those, but it's direct entrance into university should a student work through a subject at university. But it's the idea of if they were to start that, continue on. We have had students in the past who have, completed 3 subjects of a law degree while they did year 11 and 12. So there are other options, and I guess what I'd say is the other options, we're happy to, for example, if a student's having a school-based apprenticeship, they're having a day off. If a student like Pat wanted to do something else, have a day off to facilitate that. So we'll try and be really flexible around making an arrangement that suits the individual student. School-based apprenticeships really quickly. Mr. Lawrence spoke about that one today. 1 or 2 days on the job per week, 50 days required in a year for a school-based apprenticeship, or 80 per year for electrical. Same thing as Isaac talked about there, drop a line, have a day off a week to work through that. Students need to acquire their own apprenticeship or traineeship, but Mr. Lawrence, the Director of Skills and Training, is the contact there, and the boys do get QCE points for the work that they do. Where to from here? So that was us today, 14th today. Tomorrow the boys are going to go into sessions with the heads of department. So basically, we've covered that in this amount of time, but the heads of department will have a half an hour with all the groups of boys, and they will be able to talk about all of the different subjects that are in their department, and it'll be, smaller groups, about 25 to 30 students in a group. The heads of department will share all those different subject offerings and give the boys an opportunity to ask specific questions about those. From there, next week, we'll look for the boys to put in their initial preferences. So what do they want to do? They'll be looking to make 6 selections, 1 math, 1 English, 1 religion, plus 3 other. Then there will be reserves. Based on the selections or preferences that the boys put in, we then create the timetable to try to cater for as many boys as possible, getting the preferences that they want. So that'll take potentially up to, best part of 2 weeks potentially to get those lines all worked out. And after that time, we'll then start set plans. Effectively, whatever your son has selected, he'll then have a meeting with, it could be myself, Mrs. Jorgensen, heads of department, Mrs. Lang or Mr. Lawrence, depending on their pathway, looking at the subjects they've selected, looking at their results at the moment, looking at where they want to go. Are those subjects that they've selected ideal for them? And it's at that time where we know what the lines are then, and we can consider the student, where they want to go, and explore other options. If there's subjects that Matt talked about the fact that legal didn't run last year, so it would have been looking at, well, what's his next best option there? So that will happen in the set plan. That will be the end of this term. We'd very much hope to have all set plans done by the end of term. And I guess the thing that I would say is, changes can be made later. So if a student had a big shift, change of mind, well, the timetable's there. If there's room in another subject, then changes can be made. So it's not like you're locked in, that's it, you're done. Changes do happen. And, the students here tonight talked about those changes as well, the example of methods to general, that sort of thing. So that's sort of, I guess, where we go from here. At the end of tomorrow, the boys will go home with a copy of all the presentations that I've given to them over the last couple of days, plus a copy of the senior curriculum handbook, which has all the subjects in it. And then I guess it's about between now and over the weekend and into next week, getting ready to make those decisions around what they might want to put in. So that's sort of where to from here. And I guess I am conscious of time and the fact that people want to go. We're definitely happy to hang around and answer any questions. And there are refreshments outside. If you did want to contact me, always feel free to give me a call or send an email. But I know there would be people that want to go, but we will be here to answer any questions that you have from this point forward. But can I just say thank you very much for being involved in this process. I hope the boys are excited, to be honest, and I hope they're, getting ready to challenge themselves and step up. And I think these boys tonight showed that it is a step up. You got to step up, but do it into a space that they're going to enjoy, be passionate about, and challenge themselves. So, look, I hope we can get the outcome for every student the best we possibly can. But that is it from me. Thank you very much for your attendance, and please feel free to hang around.